Hey gang, it's Coach Karina. We're going to talk about the February movement of the month, which is hip extension, which is part of the hip hinge that you already worked on in January. I'm going to define hip extension. We're going to talk about the anatomy involved in hip extension, when you see it in your workouts and in your daily movement, and I'll give you a couple of tidbits. And then I'm also going to be posting extra videos, so you're going to need to stay tuned. The extra videos will have exercises to help make hip extension a better part of your movement repertoire. So basically, first we're going to talk about what it is. Hip extension is defined as the thigh moving back toward or past the plane of the body with respect to this frontal plane of the body. So this is the plane of my body. This is in front of my body. This is behind my body. So here's my plane, right? So if my thigh starts in front and I move it back, that's hip extension. If I move it past the plane of my body, that's also hip extension. Now, in a lot of us, including myself, the spine very easily extends. And so, meaning back bend, like this. Now, if I try to move my hip back, or my thigh back, and have it just be my hip, I don't go very far. And that's normal. We don't expect the human hip to extend more than 10 or 20 degrees. That's what we consider to be anatomically normal. But but some of us more easily move the spine. So it's easier to do a back extension like that. So we need to kind of try to separate them out. The cool thing is when we do separate them out successfully, your core stability will be challenged and enhanced. Hip extension is difficult for us for a couple of different reasons. One is that the front of the hip in a lot of us tends to get tight. If we sit a lot or if we're biking a lot, we're in this position a lot, that you can see how the front of the hip is kind of shortened. And so if this stuff is tight and also strong, and this stuff back here isn't working quite as well as it should, then we're a little bit imbalanced, and that makes movement of the thigh with respect to the plane of the body difficult. So a couple different things that we can work on for that. We're going to work on flexibility in the front of the hip, strength and power in the back of the hip, and get it balanced out. The muscles that are involved here, big famous dude, glute max. The gluteus maximus is our most powerful hip extensor. It is supposed to be the leader of the pack as far as the hip extension muscles go. There are hamstrings and a big muscle in the inner thigh that can help with this. They're designed to be assistants. The inner thigh muscle called adductor magnus, it sits right about here. When the thigh is flexed like this, it can help in extension. And of course the hamstrings are on the back of the knee. Their main job is to bend the knee, but they can also help extend the hip. So in our workouts, the primary time we see hip extension is when we start from a flexed position. So say you're in a lunge and you've got your left foot in front of you. This hip is right now, this is flexed. And if I come out of this lunge, that hip has just extended. Same thing if I was going up onto a step, or if I was coming out of a deadlift position or a squat position and I'm flexed, I'm starting flexed, extending my hips to neutral. The other time that we see it is when the legs end up behind the body, which again is less common in our training and in functional movement. But say you're in a plank position. I'm going to put my hands on the step here just so you can see me better. If I'm in a plank position like this, and I lift my leg, that's hip extension. Not too big. Now if I try to make my leg come up super high, that is back extension. You can see that my back arches as I lift my leg into that position. So like I said, normal hip extension's not very big. Most of the time we're looking for power and strength from our hip extensors from a flexed position, to come from a flexed position and power us vertically. So in order to make this a better part of our training and a better part of your movement in general, we're going to work on mobility in the front side of the hip, strength in the back side of the hip, and get it all balanced out for you. That's hip extension. Stay tuned for extra exercises to help make it work better for you. Hit me up at Kaya Moves. Any questions or concerns? Happy hip extension. Happy February.